Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? I hope you're all doing well. So, obviously, Tommy Robinson is a figure that basically inspires a lot of people. Same can't be said for managing to make sure the buttons line up on this thing. But Tommy Robinson obviously is a big inspiration for a lot of us people. He really is. I've been feeling more and more conflicted on both sides, the way I look at it, as far as wanting this situation that we find ourselves in with a treacherous establishment that's more interested in protecting terrorists over protecting children, and of course the fact that there is one journalist, Tommy Robinson, who has faced the most maligned, malicious persecution of any person I think any of us could ever name at this point. I don't think even Julian Assange can compare to this guy, and that obviously says something considering they're trying to kill him. But I digress. Obviously we know about the situation with the rape gangs because Tommy Robinson was one of the big key players in getting this shit started. Of course, people like Sammy Woodhouse, as well as other rape gang victim survivors, came out and discussed their situations and problems with this predominant issue. The same issue that Keir the traitor Starmer, if he had his way, the national inquiry that we'd be having would be completely squashed, just like that. Because he has zero interest in telling us the truth about the rape gangs. The fact that they are predominantly committed by Pakistani Muslim men. The fact that they represent 6% of the United Kingdom's population, yet they're responsible for this many crimes. Now here's the thing. Even if you can make the case that it is predominantly white people that commit sex crimes and what have you, it does not change the fact that if you've got a population of 6% that are going out of their way to commit the 84% of all rape gang crimes that are occurring in the United Kingdom, that's very scary. And if that's just at 6%, what do you think would happen if that population doubled? Ask yourselves that question. Ask yourselves, what would the percentage be more likely to be if we decided to double the figures? 90%? 93%? Something like that? Like, just the mere idea it's 6% alone of the population, and yet over 80% of them are responsible for this kind of shit, is enough to send a chill down almost anyone's spine, quite frankly. Any decent politician, any decent man or woman would want answers. But our establishments from the last 30 years have been more interested in subjugating their own populace than dealing with illegals that have no right to be here, and of course dealing with the big elephant in the room, which is Islam. I wonder how they managed to ferry the elephant across then. Anyway, the fact is, Islam is the biggest elephant in the room. It is the biggest thing that nobody seems to want to talk about, especially one Owen Jones. Owen Jones, the boy who has the same moral compass as Keir the traitor Starmer himself, who has about as much integrity as a burning straw house, and all the reputability of a nonce who's just been convicted. He is a man who, I think he wrote for The Guardian, if I recall correctly. This specky tosser as well is the same person who, back when I was on my old channel, Debeamer, even decided to go out of his way to insult my weight. Yes, this is the kind of guy we're talking about. The fucking specky tosser. And yes, I do accept I also wear a bunch of spectacles. But at least at the end of the day, I know mine aren't rose-tinted, unlike his. But this petulant boy, the same boy who walked off of a Sky News interview, he's more interested in talking about Gaza and Plasticine. He's more interested in pushing the pro-Plasticine cause. Speaking of pro-Plasticine, Palestine Action. That's another one. The lefties are going to lose their shit over this one. But now, Palestine Action are now going to be basically categorized as a prescribed terrorist group. And I can already hear the meltdown, even here in this quaint little town of Norwich. Oh, I can hear it all the way up to fucking Edinburgh, I swear to God. I can already see the tears flowing like Niagara Falls, or the faces going more red than a ripened tomato. I can already see these wankers getting really pissed off and demanding that the Labour government retracts what they've done. And I'm sure Keir the traitor Starmer must have taken a great deal of displeasure doing this shit, because we all know that he would rather stroke number one, side with the religion of peace over the indigenous English people. So, understandably, he's probably going to have a very fucking hard night's sleep at this point, which, unfortunately, I'm probably also going to have the same myself, as on Friday, when I got home, I literally hit the hay, and I just never got up. I just literally come home, on the bed, I'm out. Just like that. And then I didn't wake up until like 11, and then I had a whole load of fucking trouble trying to get back to sleep, let me tell you. But at least I have my bad sleeping patterns because of an honest mistake for once, rather than just me being plain stupid and playing until 1 o'clock in the fucking morning. But I digress, enough about that. That's not what you called. The truth of the matter is, Palestine Action are basically Just Stop Oil and Insulate Britain rebranded for the Plasticine cause. And I want you to think about that for a moment. Because do you know who else was also a very big fan of wanting to deal with the climate change? How dare you? Yes, her, Greta Thunberg, who's about as much fun as a funeral director at a party. She understands nothing of why she doesn't seem to be really liked that much. She doesn't seem to understand that not everyone signs on to the idea of, oh, we should support a terrorist group, effectively. Not everyone wants to sign up to people who basically want to support Hamas and Hezbollah, or maybe Hezbollahs, I don't know. Anyway, the fact is, she was constantly preaching about the climate change, and then what happened with her? Well, she decided to get on a boat, try to go to Israel, and she ended up getting detained. Just like that. And it was fucking wonderful, let me tell you. And then she tried to paint the narrative of, we're being held against our will, this is not right, and I'm a hero, please get into contact with the Swedish embassy. No, we don't want to do that shit. Like, you don't get it, do you, Greta? Actions have consequences. Fuck around, find out. You're trying to interfere in a war between Israel and Iran. You're trying to fight against Israel when they're trying to deal with the scumbags in Gaza. And don't give me this bullshit of, oh, it's a genocide and all that. No, it's not. In fact, Israel's been very, very fucking careful, because I guarantee you, if they really wanted to do genocide, they would have bombed the whole lot of them. Just like that. And that's it. They would have been cooked. 200 degrees in the oven, 15 minutes. Ding. That's the truth of the matter. But Greta Stroke number 2. Greta Thunberg will not want to admit that. I am definitely getting a lot worse, for fuck's sake. So, the way I slice it, Greta, well, her getting arrested was probably about the most satisfying fucking thing I could have ever read during the last week or two. So, there was that to enjoy. But back to the United Kingdom, of course. Tommy Robinson, of course, being the operative word here, or words, rather. The fact of the matter is, turns out Tommy Robinson, and I didn't actually fully know this. I was saying it based off of instincts and what was said at one particular point about America. But you remember what I said about the Americans were the ones who first released the silence documentary over in America? Yeah, that has now been confirmed. The Americans were the ones who released that film first in America. So the moment that thing got out, as I said, that film was in the public domain, because then all the Americans needed to do is literally just start shipping it off to various emails who maybe have been loyal to Tommy Robinson and what have you, and you're going to see that film pop up in places like India, you're going to see it in Australia, Japan, even Russia in some extreme cases. You will see it in the UK, just to name a few. Like, they don't understand how the internet works, it seems. Because once you send out that link that shows this film, it's very fucking difficult to actually put a stop to it. But of course, Keir the traitor Starmer he still cycled on forward, thinking that he was going to be able to put this man in prison and basically have him killed. 7 months Tommy Robinson spent in prison. 7 months he spent in solitary confinement. 7 months where he was sitting in solitary compared to terrorists who were literally living a life in Travelodge rather than in HMP Belmarsh or indeed HMP Woodhill. But of course the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me. It doesn't suit the narrative. But what do I mean, of course, by they were living in Travelodge and what have you? Well, as Tommy Robinson said from the Lee and Tufts Dozen podcast, these guys had all sorts. They had a proper kitchen, air fryer, oven, cooker, stuff you'd expect in a normal home, not stuff you'd expect in a prison. I mean, I grant you've got to give them some basic cooking stuff, as obviously you've got to make some kind of food for these guys, even if, quite frankly, I think most of these scumbags in HMP Woodhill and Belmarsh, bearing in mind their Category B and A prisons, I think they would be, quite frankly, better off with a bowl of porridge or some dried bread and water. I think that would be a very good substitute for a lot of the luxuries that those cunts have been getting. Bearing in mind Tommy Robinson had no such access to such a luxurious kitchen. Almost said computer, I don't know why I said that. Anyway, they had far better privileges for being far worse people. How sad is it that we live in a society where you can be a terrorist and you get an Xbox, you get a PlayStation, you get a fucking cooker a kitchen that makes you all manners of decent fucking foods. You get to go to Islamic prayer. Like, is this a prison or is it a holiday camp? Last time I checked, it should be a fucking prison. And if it's not a prison, then there's something very fucking wrong, quite frankly. And I know some people will not appreciate me swearing like a sailor every 10 to 15 seconds, but at the end of the day, I am not going to sugarcoat a motherfucking thing. I am not going to mince my words. I'm going to say it exactly how it is, and I will do my best not to bullshit you. The truth of the matter is, we do have a very, very soft touch in this country. I've mentioned it many bloody times. I'll mention it here again. Whether it comes down to the riots that occurred when it's the far left doing it, and they're like, please stop doing that, please remain calm, please stop that, please don't do this, please don't do that. And then in the meantime, with the right wing, as soon as we step even a hair out of line, they pull out the batons. just like that. And yet, when we have the prisons, we have the Islamic terrorists who are basically being treated with red carpet royalty after committing the most atrocious crimes. I mean, Axel Radaku Banana, maybe not so much. Though I think at one point Tommy Robinson even said in the podcast that he even had access to the fucking medical stuff and he was cleaning medical equipment. Medical equipment. Frankly, there's only one thing I'd have that wanker that is Axel Radaku Banana doing, and that's painting his cell white, quite frankly. But now we come to what I would consider, how should I put this? My most conflicted part of this entire video. And that is, of course, the fact that obviously Tommy Robinson has been fighting the good fight far longer than any other person in this entire country. Most of us were sitting on our asses, having a pizza, watching telly, going down to the pub and having a beer or two, while Tommy Robinson was obviously fighting the rape gangs, the religion of peace in name only, and all the usual shit. And anybody who's come in recently will know that I have been saying I think we are heading towards a civil war. And I'll be clear, as I've always done, I don't want it to go down to a civil war or a violent revolution. I've always said that. I don't want it. And I'm pretty sure Tommy Robinson doesn't want that, though you don't need to be a bloody genius to figure that one out. Tommy Robinson has been busting his balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case, both. Oh! Anyway, he's been busting his balls trying to get a peaceful resolution for this country. He has been absolutely spilling his guts and his blood to try and get a peaceful resolution. Unfortunately, it's starting to look more and more like it's not going to happen. That's the cold, bitter truth. As much as I am on the side of Tommy Robinson, as much as I don't want it to descend to that, I think we are going to head to that within the next 3 to 9 months. I think we are not going to be able to solve this peacefully before a civil war breaks out. Guardian Mose is a lovely guy. I know that. And I appreciate he probably has a bit more optimism than I do. But I've never been one for optimism or pessimism. I am more of a realist than anything else. And I honestly cannot see in good faith the indigenous people of the United Kingdom. I can't see them waiting 4 fucking years or 5 fucking years to end this peacefully. I don't think they've got the patience for it. I think they've got about 12 months, if you're lucky. Frankly, I think it's going to be 3 to 9 months. That's my honest opinion on that. I do think that it is going to descend into absolute anarchy before we can even come close to a general election. Unless that election comes literally in the next 3 to 9 months, it's all going to kick off, and I'm not talking about the football matches that keep going on in my local town. That is the truth of the matter. We are heading towards a civil war. And I know Keir the traitor Starmer and the lamestream media and everyone else in the nonce party, I mean the Labour Party, or maybe I was right first time, they will all say it's far-right thuggery and all that nonsense and all the usual buzzwords and crap that comes out of their mouth, which has about as much substance as a single shot of malt. They will not be able to actually explain to the indigenous people who are fast asleep that this is not a result of the far right. This is not a result, well, it might be far right as in Islam, but it certainly ain't the indigenous people of the United Kingdom, and they're not going to like being libelously slandered by the mainstream media. The truth of the matter is, if a violent revolution or a civil war breaks out, they won't be able to blame the Tories, they won't be able to blame the far right, They won't be able to blame nationalists or populists or whatever. The only people they will be able to blame will be themselves. Because at the end of the day, the people elect them into power to enact the will of the British people, or the English people. I know that guy's going to come along and give me a bollocking for calling me British, but, you know, it is what it is. But anyway, the fact of the matter is, we're heading down that route. And as I said, if it does happen, they'll only have themselves to blame. It's exactly the same scenario as Ballymena and Southport. And ironic, one of them's Ballymena, and I keep calling it Ballerina, and one of these fucking incidents happened in a dance class. Anyway, it doesn't change the fact that they won't be able to blame us. History will look back, and they won't see us as thugs. They won't look at us as far-right terrorists. They will look at us as ordinary citizens who were sick and tired of the oppression and the tyranny of a two-tier government and a two-tier policing society. And they will see us as people who decided enough was enough and that we were going to take back the country. That's the truth of the matter. And as I said, Guardian Mose, he is very optimistic, but I don't think, with the greatest respect, I don't think he understands how high the tensions are, quite frankly. I think he is too optimistic. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but in this particular case, too much optimism can blind you to the rest of the world. It would effectively be like putting on the rose-tinted specs and wondering why the hell all it is you can only see red and not this fairy. As I said, I don't want a war. I don't want a violent revolution. None of the people who are part of the Unite the Kingdom movement want a violent revolution. But unfortunately, we can't always get what we want. We can't always have the best case scenario. Think about it. Do you think we got the best case scenario when we had to fight 2 world wars back in the 20th century? Do you think that we got the best case scenario when Jimmy Tiny Cockosaurus Savile ended up violating all those women and children? Do you think that we got the best case scenario when Tony the War Criminal Blair decided to send thousands of soldiers to their deaths on a false pretense? The truth of the matter is, we can't always have nice things. And as much as we would love this to end peacefully, don't expect it to. That's what I would say. I might even fall out with Tommy Robinson over this, for all I know. Obviously, I will still bloody admire the guy, and as I've said before, even if I feel like we're heading towards a violent revolution, the one thing I've always said, and I have done every single time without fail, is I will conduct myself in a professional manner at his protests. Every single fucking one. Doesn't matter if I want a violent revolution or if I blindly follow the path of optimism. I will always behave in a peaceful manner at his rallies. I will always be respectful at those rallies. I just cannot, in good faith, commit to the idea that this is going to end peacefully. I can't scry into the future, look into a magic ball, and see, yes, that's what the future is. I can't do that. None of us can. What I can say is that if this continues, I think this volcano is going to explode. People like Katie Hopkins have said this. People like, what's-his-face? Douglas Murray have been saying this. I'm not sure if Jordan Peterson has been saying it. We have had, was it Dominic Cummings? Or someone else? I can't remember off the top of my head. But there's a whole load of people who have been saying we're on the verge of a civil war. I don't think we should ignore that. I think at this point, we need to be tentative about the future. I would recommend you make sure you always have something to defend yourself, within reason. Don't break the law, but make sure you can defend yourself if necessary. Because at the end of the day, if it kicks off, it is going to kick off worse than any civil war we've had in our history. It is going to hit us like a fucking torpedo. And it is not going to be pretty. The fact of the matter is, no matter how much of a hero Tommy Robinson is, he is only one man. And even he can only do so much. That doesn't mean I don't support him. That doesn't mean that I don't want this to end peacefully. It doesn't mean that I think Tommy Robinson's wrong about what he's doing. Far from it. But what I am saying is it would be very foolish to put all your eggs in one basket. You need to make sure you have a plan B. I know I will. I will see to that. And I know there's going to be some talk about, if you want a revolution, fill your boots, why don't you go and lead it? As I said, I don't want a violent revolution. I don't want it to all kick off. That's the truth. I don't want it to go down that route. And even if I did, the only reason I wouldn't want to lead it is because I've never really been a leader. I have never been a person who is like, right, I'm going to bring up all the troops and I'm going to send them that way. Because I'll tell you right now, I would probably end, if it was a battle simulator right now, and I had to send my troops into battle, they'd all be getting fucking killed, let me tell you. Like, yes, I play my strategy games and what have you, but as far as real life strategy, you got two hopes of me leading you to victory. No hope and Bob Hope. And I don't think Bob Hope is with us. So, make of that what you will. But as I said, I do not want it. I can't stress it enough. But I know full well we're gonna have to be ready for it. We have to be ready for the worst case scenario. Because if we go into this thinking everything's gonna be lovey-dovey and sunshine, lollipops and rainbows, and then all of a sudden it all kicks off, we are going to be on the back foot like you would not believe. And I know Keir the traitor Starmer wants a civil war. He thinks that he'll be able to bring in new laws and all that shit. Honestly though, I don't think the people would let him get far. And even if he was somehow able to survive it, the civil war that is, I don't think his credibility would be able to stand up in the eyes of the media or the eyes of the people. Because people will look at him as the Prime Minister who single-handedly started another civil war, and he will be looked at as the most despised Prime Minister in English history. The bottom line is, Tommy Robinson has always been a national hero, and nothing will ever change that. Yes, by the way, I also did put a couple of super chats in Dan Wotton's thing, because I'm starting to cancel my HelloFresh stuff now, so that gives me a small bit of extra money that I can put to getting the message out there, because obviously being able to put my messages out there, show my support, as well as get 5 minutes of advertising, if nothing else. At the end of the day, more people need to see the channel. More people need to be clued in on what's going on. And I'll be goddamned if I'm not going to take up that opportunity. And I even mentioned on Dan Wotton's channel, I even mentioned about the Houses of Treachery and then said, I mean Parliament, or maybe I was right first time. Obviously, the guy agrees. yes, you were right the first time, they are all traitors. And that is exactly what those, 98%, I would say, of the MPs in the Houses of Treachery are. Almost every single one of those dickheads is a traitor. And those good politicians that were in there, like Rosie Duffield, she left because she didn't like what Labour was becoming. Nigel El-Faraji is losing more and more members because of its stance on mass deportations, because of its stance on, oh, if we veto the Islamic vote, we will lose. Like, no, that's just someone who's being fatalistic. And I have to say as well that June Slater needs to also, as I've said before, she needs to stop being the smitten kitten, and she needs to realise that you can't get behind someone who is willing to slander your fucking core voters. You can't support someone that is basically going to stab you in the back all the time, quite frankly. I mean, you can if you want, but don't expect to be taken seriously by decent folk, is the way I look at it. But as far as Tommy Robinson is concerned, he did get an apology on GB News. Of course, there were the lefty NPCs, though they have to have them on because of, obviously, impartiality and balance. Otherwise, off-communists decide to... Sorry, Ofcom. Or again, maybe I was right first time. They will decide, oh, you're not being impartial. Well, we decided we're going to close you down. We're going to put restrictions and what have you. We're going to label you far right and all the usual bollocks that they come out with. That's the truth of the matter. But as far as this country is concerned, I am worried. I am very, very worried. I am scared, in fact. I'm scared of what this country is going to become. I am scared of what the country is going to be subjected to in the future. I am scared of what will happen if good men and women... Stroke number 3. Good men and women do nothing. I know what a woman is. Shut up. Oh, God. But no, that is the truth of the matter. Evil only wins when good men and women do nothing. That's what it comes down to. Tommy ain't going to sit around and do nothing. The question comes down to you and me. Will we sit idly by and do nothing? Or will we step up to the mark and take back this country? Will we take out the trash and place it in the dustbin of history? Or will we be happy to let the rape gangs continue? Will we take a stand for truth and justice and no more two-tier societies? Or will we let it continue and let the innocent suffer on the back of it? The time has come to make a decision. We all have a choice to make, and we have to make sure that it is indeed the right one.